it's time to get in our covered wagons. It is time to get in our stagecoaches. It is time to head down the Oregon recruiting trail. Usually we start the show with recruiting. We are going to end the show with recruiting here today. And before we look forward to this weekend of official visits, man, you got to look back. Oh, boy. This last weekend was chock full of five-star defensive talent. Some pretty good offensive talent on there as well, but it was really all about the defensive side of the ball. How about that photo of Brandon Arrington, Jet Washington, and Joey O'Brien? More length in that photo than some flying death machines from the Cretaceous period in there. I just love the way that the secondary is going, like college version of the Legion of Boom. Anybody? We know what happened last year with those 4 top 75 guys. And then, like, if you can land 2 of those guys from last weekend, Brandon Arrington, you can land Jet Washington, boy, you're getting into dangerous territory of what that secondary could truly be in a couple of seasons, man. Chris Hampton is doing a phenomenal job. He was 24/7 Sports Recruiter of the Year last year. Tosh Lapoy, Dan Lanning, like, this is a defensive staff. They know the traits that they are looking forward to, but man, having that type of length on defense, baby, that is some good stuff that gets me really excited. One last thing to kind of wrap up last weekend as well, Tyler Atkinson, number 1 linebacker, 5-star from the state of Georgia. Everybody's saying it's going to be a tough pull. Going to be a tough pull to get that type of defender out of Kirby Smart's backyards. And yes, I agree, and I've said that before, but Dan Lanning is taking the point on this recruitment. Tyler Atkinson confirming Dan Lanning is the point guard in this recruitment. He is the main contact. Tyler Atkinson very invested in his personal brand, and we know, does anybody do brand maybe better than the Oregon Ducks? We know that they've been investing a lot into that. There was an unofficial visit and now an official visit a couple of times here in the last couple of months that Tyler Atkinson was on campus in Eugene. You know, every cycle, Dan Lanning always seems to make one big, bold, upset type of move, type of commitment, type of signee. Maybe it's Tyler Atkinson in 2026. Maybe that is the guy. That'll be as high profile as a linebacker that they've gotten in the Dan Lanning era. Man, like that would be something. And that really kind of ties into maybe some things that I'm going to be talking about a little bit later on. But I don't know. I just got a gut feeling with Dan taking over in this recruitment and making it an extreme priority. I'm not saying it will happen. I'm just saying I think Oregon I think they're in a really good spot for Tyler Atkinson. That's the way I feel. But I challenge anybody to say that they had a bad official visit. Everybody's always positive coming off of their own official visits. But let's advance to this weekend. Now, before we talk about the storylines about June 13th, before we talk about the storylines of this upcoming recruiting weekend, we got to talk about a guy that's going to be there on campus this weekend, and we got to talk about a guy that's going to be committing on Friday. So first off, before I name said player, because we are going to make a commitment prediction here, we're 1 for 2 on commitment predictions. Got the recommitment of Jared Curtis correct. Caden Dixon-Wyatt, I was not correct. I thought he'd come to Oregon. He went to Ohio State. But, like, before you name names, if you've got a guy that's slated to commit on a Friday and slated to show up at Oregon on Friday night or on Saturday, that alone, without telling you who the player is, should give you a pretty damn good feeling that that player is going to be a Duck. Okay? If he commits somewhere else when it comes to Oregon, boy, would that be ass backwards. It's Messiah Hampton, the 4-star wide receiver out of the state of New York. Relationships are huge in recruiting. Relationships are huge in college football. Ross Douglas was recruiting this guy when he was the wide receivers coach and passing game coordinator at Syracuse. And now ever since Ross Douglas has come over to Oregon, Messiah Hampton was Ross Douglas's first offer. That has been a relationship that has continued to grow and continue to grow and continue to grow. Now, Fran Brown in Syracuse, I think they're still fighting. They're still clawing. Ohio State and Penn State are some other top-tier schools that are a little bit more local that are certainly trying to get in this recruitment as well. Messiah Hampton recently trimmed it down to a top 7. But this is, and I've talked about this. I talked about it last week when Kelvin Russell was on campus. Like, now we're really going to find out the recruiting chops of Ross Douglas, because I think we know what he can do from a development standpoint. We saw what happened last year with that deep crop of wide receivers, top passing offense in the country last year in upstate New York. But before that, it was just 1 year in college. Before that, he was in the NFL. So we haven't really seen what he can do on the recruiting trail. He seals the deal here. That'll certainly give me a lot of confidence going forward. What's my prediction on Messiah Hampton? Relationships are huge. I think this ongoing long relationship with Ross Douglas, I think, is gigantic. I think Oregon, ever since really the decision of Caden Dixon-White, has put Messiah Hampton really at a top level in terms of priority at the wide receiver position. I think when Messiah Hampton comes onto campus this weekend, I think he's going to be a Duck. I think he's going to be coming around and he's going to be saying, you know how great it is to be an Oregon Duck? It is great. And he's maybe going to be recruiting some other guys when he is on campus over there in Eugene this weekend. Let's talk about some of those other guys. Let's talk about the storylines that I think we have going into this June 13th official visit weekend. Oregon's playing with a little bit of a lead, especially with 3 guys, and that's where I want to start. 3 of the visitors this weekend are on 3 RPM predicted to land at Oregon. Quarterback Ryder Lyons. We already talked about Messiah Hampton. Don't need to talk about him anymore. Cornerback Devon Benjamin, as well, out of Oaks Christian in California. Let's start first with Ryder Lyons, the quarterback. Like, this recruitment has become so important. Like, ever since you even go back to what happened with Jaron Sagapulitelli, and then you go to the flip of Jonas Williams, and then you go to missing out on Jared Curtis. Like, they need to get an elite level quarterback. Like, you can't keep striking out. You can't set that precedent that Oregon is always second place. I know the Ducks do a great job in the transfer portal with quarterbacks. I get that, but at some point, they need to develop a quarterback. At some point, they need to win a recruitment. At some point, they need to get the job done. And I think, although Ryder Lyons doesn't look like he's going to be visiting USC in the spring or the summer, there's something maybe scheduled out there in the fall. We'll see what happens with that. But right now, like, these 2 weeks seem very pivotal. They seem very crucial, and Oregon needs to keep. What we saw last weekend is they are putting all of their chips into the middle of these official visit tables, which shouldn't surprise anybody. It's the summer of Dan, after all. This is kind of what Oregon does. They really excel during this official visit season. But Ryder Lyons, BYU, is the other big contender in this recruitment right now. BYU, I think, can throw around some cash. And we know the connection with the Church of Latter-day Saints. We know that Ryder Lyons is going to be going on a mission, and he's really a 2027 recruit as well. So, like, this is one that Oregon certainly needs to put a lot of resources into. I'm very curious as to what the timing is going to be coming out of these official visits. This weekend for Oregon, next weekend for BYU, for Ryder Lyons as well. So, like, it goes without saying how big of a recruitment he is. He is the future of the quarterback position if they can get him to commit to Oregon. But being a 2027 kid, it's kind of like there's still a lot of time before he signs on the dotted line. So even if he does commit, I still do think that there is a decent amount of time to go, but we'll see. Hopefully the Duck coaching staff can sell him that they want to invest into him as the future at the quarterback position, the future leader of this Duck offense going forward post Dante Moore. Let's talk about Devon Benjamin. He's been on 3 RPM predicted at Oregon for, I think, a couple of months now, for a while, and I'm very curious to see where the staff stands on him. I talked about at the beginning of this segment the sheer talent and size and length that was on campus from the defensive back position as well. We know what they took last year with those 4 elite players. Where does a guy like Devon Benjamin fit into all of this? If this is a team that can go out and they can get Jet Washington and they can get Brandon Arrington, where that's a corner, that's a safety. Where does someone like Devon really fit in? One thing that I think is very interesting, I've said this before in a previous show, I think that he really fits the role of that slot corner, that nickel, the star position in Oregon's defense. Oregon already has the commitment this cycle from someone as well that I believe could fit into that position as well. Now, Devon Benjamin is really listed as a corner. Xavier Larice is that other guy. He's listed as a safety. He's been committed for a while. I think he was on campus this last weekend or recently, if I'm not mistaken. And he is ultra staunch in his commitment, certainly to Oregon. Like him and Tristan Phillips are just like, they're all in. I don't think they're going anywhere, certainly right now. So are they going to take two guys that could fit into the star position in this 2026 cycle? Texas, I think Devon Benjamin was on campus at Texas last weekend, and it looks like they are making a significant push. Of course, being in California, USC is also a team that is also very much involved, or wants, I should say, to probably be very much involved in this recruitment as well. But I'm just kind of curious. I'm kind of curious where Devon Benjamin really sits and really stands in all of this. My hunch for the secondary tells me one corner, possibly two safeties, and a star. That's what it really tells me for this class. Okay? That could get you Brandon Arrington. That could get you Jet Washington. Maybe they pull off an upset with Joey O'Brien. Maybe they get Jaira Edwards, right? And then, or maybe they get two stars, like I said, or two nickel guys in Devon Benjamin and Xavier Larice. So I'm very curious to see how the plan is all going to come together as these months certainly come forward. Now, second thing, they got a big opportunity to make some big moves on some big boys. A lot of talk around when it comes to the offensive line now has been about Emmanuel Ahinacho, and I put him number one in my priority recruitment rankings for a reason. You know who else I put in my top 5? Offensive tackle Kelvin Obot. He is going to be on campus from Fruitland, Idaho, just across the Oregon-Idaho border. I think he's a big one. Oregon always wanted 2 offensive linemen in this class, or I should say like 2 offensive tackles. And now you have Tommy Tofi committing over to Cal. Now I think Kelvin Obot, right? We see some of these guys, the priority continue to step up the ladder. Deuce Gerald's a defensive tackle from the Southeast. Like, I think Oregon, they're in the top 4 for Kelvin Obot. They're sitting in a really good position. I think this official visit is going to go a long way to determine where the Ducks really stand with Obot and if they can get that deal done. Deuce Gerald feels a lot like Tyler Atkinson to me. Guy from the South, really good player, someone that Oregon wants. We know that they lost Tamahini Tupui on the defensive line. That we know that they've got the 2 Willamette kids that we've talked about before with Tony Cumberland and Viliami Malawa. Having a third defensive lineman in this class, I think, I'm talking about like a defensive tackle type of guy, not necessarily an edge rusher, but somebody like Deuce Gerald's, I think would be big. Now, it's going to be tough. This is another one of those Southeast recruitments that I think is going to be very difficult. But what did we see when you get a guy on campus for an official visit and you show him and you roll out the red carpet and you put all the bells and whistles out there? That can make a difference. That can make an impact. So Deuce Gerald's and Tyler Atkinson are guys that I think a lot of people are thinking are going to be tough pulls. Can they go into the Southeast and do what they did with Naeem Offord with either of these guys? I think these official visits are going to go a long way to really determining what certainly comes out of that as well. Should be a very interesting weekend here on campus in Eugene on this June 13th, really setting the stage for next weekend, which is going to be huge.